So I will now share my screen and go to the OK Fire website, which is the topic of our first major section here. So here we go. This is the main Mesonet website showing up here, mesonet.org. And if you go, these menu buttons here at the top, if you go to Fire Management and click that, you will be taken to the OK Fire section of the general Mesonet website. So everything below this line here represents the OK Fire website. So let me first talk about, we have occasionally a scrolling ticker here at the top. This is to alert you to, in this case, the workshops that are being offered this fall, and then it gives you where to go on the website to see more details, which is the news section here. We don't have the ticker rolling all the time, but if there's maybe a really bad wildfire outbreak anticipated over the next day or two, then there might be a ticker that would indicate that as well. Below that is what we call the home page. And let me first talk about this column of data here. This is where you can select any of our 120 Mesonet sites to appear on your home page. This is called the primary station of the website. And you can change it to another Mesonet site by just clicking on the name, and either in the pull-down menu here or selecting just on the map. You can see it changes in this case to Foraker and so forth. If you wanted to add another station on the home page, what you can do is just click here, and then the same thing. Let's say we wanted to also add Burbank for somebody who's working in Osage County. So here you can see both Foraker and Burbank appear on the home page with important weather and fire danger data. Now I should say that the primary station here is the default station throughout the entire OK Fire site. So when you go to the chart section or the table section, that will be the default station that will be showing. That's a nice feature of the website. This is called the secondary station here, and that does not appear as a default anywhere. It's only the primary station. So let me go back to, and then the way to get rid of the station, just to hit that X, let me go back to Stillwater now. And also, let's just add the Marina site. So let me explain these tables of data here. Mesonet updates their weather data every 5 minutes. So this shows the time of the weather data that's being presented here. And for purposes of fire, we put the most important weather variables first, and you can see they're in larger font than some of these other variables down here. So relative humidity right now at Stillwater is 47%. The relative humidity has dropped 2% in the past hour. Winds are west at 7, and the max wind gust at 10. And then also we show temperature, 24-hour rainfall, dispersion conditions, as well as sunrise, sunset. In the table below, we have fire danger information. We're not going to cover any of this today. That will be in part 2 of the workshop tomorrow. So if you want to understand more about the fire danger information, that's what the part 2 workshop is all about. And the similar information then for the secondary station, Marina. Let me now go to one other feature I wanted to show you is any of these, if you click on the variable name, it'll bring up a statewide map of that particular variable. So here you see relative humidity and wind directions for the entire state. So that's a nice feature as well. Another feature of the website is any page that you're on, if you click on this OK Fire logo, it will take you back to the home page. So that's another nice feature. Now let me talk about these 2 regional maps to the left of these tables. Note that they are centered around the primary station here, which in this case is Stillwater. So the counties around Payne County are shown here. And the first regional map here is showing the relative humidity and the numbers. So 47 at Stillwater, 50% at Marina, and so forth. The wind directions are shown by the arrows, and the length of the arrow is proportional to the wind speed. Although we don't give you explicitly what the wind speeds are, you can see by the length of the arrow whether they're stronger or lighter. The second regional map is the burning index map, again, which we'll discuss in detail tomorrow in part 2. But this is basically an indication of the current fire danger in this area here. So as you get into the oranges and reds and dark reds, you get increasing fire danger. And then here again is the information. Now let's go down to these forecast charts, which are below this information. And they're for the immediate next 12 hours based on the NAM forecast, which we'll talk about in the next section that we'll cover today. But this shows what's expected over the next 12 hours in terms of wind speed in the blue here, relative humidity in the green. So you can see that humidity is expected to rise as we go into the early morning hours at 2 a.m. Wind speeds are expected to drop and so forth. These symbols here represent wind speed and direction. We'll talk a little bit about more how to interpret them a little later, but basically it's showing westerly winds from the west during that entire period. The next graph below is for the next 12-hour prediction of burning index for a particular fuel model, which again, we'll talk about fuel models tomorrow. And then any 1 hour precipitation that's expected in the blue. So you can see that no precipitation is expected over the next 12 hours at either of these two sites. And that the fire danger, as typical, peaks during the mid-afternoon period and then decreases as you go into the overnight period. The other nice thing about our graphs is you can put your mouse cursor or your finger over the graph and this little pop-up box will occur that will show you the time and then the values of the particular variables like wind speed, relative humidity, and wind direction. So that way you don't have to interpolate on the vertical axes to see what the actual values are. So whichever way you prefer. So now let's go to the left menu items, because this is the section where you can get into the sort of the meat and potatoes of the OK Fire website. So let's first click on current station conditions. And again, since Stillwater is the primary station, this appears as the default on this particular page. And on this page, we have all the information, whether it's weather variables or dispersion information or fire danger information, all the variables that are available on the OK Fire website. Because there's so many, we can't obviously put them all on the home page. We just selected what we think are the most important variables. But for example, if you wanted to see how the relative humidity has changed in the last 3 hours, you can click on that, and again, you'll get a statewide map for that particular variable. So that this is the same feature. Again, you can click on the variable name and you'll get a statewide map of that particular variable. If you want to change your station, you can do it here. You can, like, if you wanted to go choose Medicine Park, you'll switch to that information. The nice thing about it is that your primary and secondary stations will not change on the home page. If we go back to the home page, you'll see that it still is Stillwater and Marina. This gave us a good opportunity to describe what these sort of dashed lines mean. It means that for that particular 5-minute period, there was some interruption either in the radio signal or something that prevented the information from coming to our Mesonet computers. But typically this will clear up, and in the next 5 minutes, that data will be reporting again. Of course, in cases where we have like ice storms where it coats the anemometer and things like that, then we can have extended outages of data, especially for wind speed and wind direction. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say basically about this current station conditions page. Let's now go to current maps. This is a really interesting section. It has 4 major sections: fire weather maps, fire danger maps, satellite maps, and local radar maps. And if you click on any of these, it'll take you immediately to that section rather than having to scroll down or up to get to whatever section you're interested in. Couple things I want to say here about the maps. If you click on the Learn More text below each of these small maps, you'll get a educational description of what that particular map is displaying and how that variable or variables are important with respect to fire behavior. So here it's talking about, the effect of relative humidity and winds and so forth. So that's a nice educational tool that we have underneath each of these maps. Also, if you click on the map itself, you'll get a large version of the map, and that same text appears below the map. So again, a nice educational tool that we have under each of the maps. So here's our fire weather maps, all sorts of things. This is again for the most current time. Here's our fire danger maps. We'll again talk about these variables in part 2 of the workshop. And then the satellite maps, we'll talk about that tomorrow as well, as we will the radar maps. So this is a good section to go to get current information. I want to now take you to the past and forecast animated map section, which is a really nice interface because it can display past maps, current maps, or forecast maps. And you can also choose which variable to display. If you click on the variable pull-down menu, right now the default is relative humidity and winds, but you could select any of these that the mouse cursor allows you to or your finger allows you to click on. For example, there are certain variables that don't go in the forecast mode, like the past 1 hour relative humidity change or so forth. But then once they're highlighted, that means those particular variables are available in the forecast mode. Same thing with the fire information. So let's keep it on relative humidity and winds. And this is the duration of the animation. You can go as little as 3 hours into the future or the whole length of the forecast, which is 84 hours. You can also do it in 1 hour intervals, the maps in 3 hour intervals or 6 hour intervals. But let's keep it at 1 hour. So then to animate it, if you go to this toolbar beneath the map, you'll see this icon here in the middle. That's the play button. So if you click that, it'll show you the time and the day of the forecast. So we're going into tomorrow now, wee hours of the morning. And you can see the information going through the forecast mode for those particular variables. So nothing too exciting happening. There's no the winds are pretty much from the northwest to west during this entire period. So it's not really that exciting, but it'll take you through 84 hours. And then it'll start over again. If you click the middle button again, that's the pause button. Now let's talk about what these other buttons represent. If you click on the first button, it'll take you to the first frame of the animation, which is the first full hour after the current time. And since it's 1:24 right now, the next full hour is 2 o'clock. So that's when the animation starts. If you click on the last button, it takes you to the last frame of the animation, which is 6 p.m. Saturday. Now, what are these second and fourth buttons for? If you want to go advanced 1 frame at a time using your mouse or clicking on it with your finger or touching it with your finger, you can do that. So you can go at your own pace, just advancing 1 frame at a time going forward. The second button goes 1 frame at a time going backward in time. So that's what those buttons are for. And then finally, you can speed or slow the animation by the speed bar by, at least on your mouse, clicking your left mouse button and then slowing it down to go, very slow speed, or you can drag it and go to a very high speed going through the forecast. So I think the default is about a half a second per slide. So that's what that is for. But you can also go in the past mode, and most variables that are short term, you can animate going back the past 30 days. If it's a longer term variable, such as in the fire information, for example, 1,000 hour dead fuel moisture is a longer term variable. And so in that case, you can go back a whole year, the past 52 weeks. But most animation of the variables, you can go back 30 days. So I think, oh, and one other thing I wanted to say, let's say there was a particular animation that you wanted to share with a colleague or whatever. How would I share the link to this particular animation? Well, if you go to your browser and the address bar here, if you would just highlight it, and then you can click and copy and then paste it into your email. And so this gives all the information about that particular animation. We're doing it for the relative humidity and wind speed, duration of the past 24 hours, and the time interval of an hour. So when you send it to somebody and then they would click on that link, it'll get them the same animation. Now, if they click on your link, 24 hours later after you send it, then they're only going to look at the past 24 hours from at the time when they, clicked on the link. So it's not going to be the exact animation that you send them unless they, click on it right away. So, but that's how you can send the link to this particular animation. Let's now go to the past forecast chart table section, which is our interface for charts and tables. Another very nice interface. So you can see you can either select charts or tables, and also the time mode either being past or forecast. The default is charts and forecast. Notice also that Stillwater is the default station, since that's the primary station on the home page. And similar to the map animation page, you have a variable pull-down menu where you can select what, in this case, what graph you want to plot for what particular variable. So the default is the standard mediagram, which is the weather information. So let's keep it on that for now. And again, you can go through the entire forecast or just, the next 3-6 hours, and then what interval you want the data to be plotted, every hour or every 3 hours. So once you've decided on your station and what you want to plot, then you hit Get Data. And you get a series of, in this case, charts of different weather variables. So we ordered the graphs according to what are most important in terms of fire danger and fire behavior. So the first graph has to do with relative humidity, which is the most important weather variable for fire behavior. We also plot 1 hour precipitation. So this is what the 84-hour forecast is predicting for relative humidity. It goes up during the overnight hours and then goes down in the mid-afternoon and goes up and down, as is typical. The next graph is the second most important variable for fire behavior, and that's wind speed in the blue. And then wind direction is shown by these symbols here. And again, I'll talk more in depth of how to interpret that symbolism when we get into our next section of fire weather. But basically, it's showing winds out of the west during this entire period, west to northwest. And here we're getting some light southwest winds at the very end. The next graph is air temperature and dew point in the green. And then the final is the solar radiation that's predicted. And the gray represents the theoretical maximum that occurs on that day. So you can see, if it's what the actual predicted solar radiation is according to what the maximum could be for that day. A couple other things I want you to see. Again, for whatever chart you're displaying, if you highlight the address on the browser menu address bar, and then you can send that to somebody, and they'll see the same graph according to when they click on it. I want to go to this little icon up here, which is these 3 bars here. If you click on that, it allows you to do 2 things. If you want to save the image, or the chart in this case, you can download it in these 3 different formats. So if you wanted to download it as a JPEG image, and then you can click on it and see that it saves you the entire graph in a JPEG format. So that's what that is for. And then also, if you wanted to save the data that goes into making these charts, you can downloaded into Excel or a C, delimited file there. So if you click on that, it will take it into a Excel file mode, and then you can click on that and see the actual data that goes into making these charts. We won't do that at this point, but just to let you know it's available. Okay, I think, and then let me go to show you, again, you can do this in pass mode as well. Let's say we wanted to plot the last 5 days of data for Stillwater. You can do that. So in this case, you can see the 2 rain events that we had over the past 5 days. This is basically accumulated rainfall ending at 0Z Greenwich England time, and then it re-zeroes out again. So it's a little different than our forecast graphs, which just predict 1 hour precipitation. This is accumulated rainfall, and then it resets when you get to midnight Greenwich England time. But other than that, it's very similar to our graph. So you can see what the relative humidity has done over the past 5 days, what the winds have done. Purple represents the wind gusts, which our forecasts do not predict. So if you want to see actual wind gusts that occurred in the past, you can go to this part, going in the past mode with Mesonet data. So now let me just show you how you get to see tables if you want to do that mode. So tables, let's do forecast. And let's, again, there's different types of tables. Let's keep it on fire weather and then get data. So this is every hour of the forecast going through the 84 hours, because that's what we specified. You see the various values for the variables that are in this table here. Sometimes you have to scroll to the right to see them all. But look at this information below the table. If you don't want to keep specifying or going to the next page of 15 rows per page, which is kind of cumbersome, you can specify here, I want to see 100 rows per page, which would then obviously be the entire forecast of 84 values. So then that way you don't have to click all those other buttons that were here at the bottom. So that's what that's for. Let me also show you what these 3 icons up here do. This first one is a toggle switch to look at the table in 2 different formats. This is kind of in blocks. Everything for that particular time and day is shown in a sort of vertical table here. Whereas if you go back the other way, it's shown more in a row format. So you have to, go back left and right, but this is all in one table. So if you prefer that format, you can choose that. The second icon here is for if you want to take out certain variables from your table so they're not displayed. So let's say I wanted to take out dew point, you just click on that. Let's say I wanted to take out cloud cover or solar radiation, and then you can see the resulting table has taken those variables away. And then the way to put them back again is just to click on the boxes again. This last icon here, this is basically for tabular type data. So if you want to import the same table into Excel format, you would click on this, and then it would give you another export file that you can click on and then load into Excel, and you would see this table in an Excel format. But these are all different formats of getting that data if you're interested in that. And of course, you can also go in pass mode and go back up to 30 days for the variables. So I think that's all I want to say about that section. Let's now go to, well, the Fire Prescription Planner we're going to look at in detail later this afternoon, so I will not go to that now. This next menu item is a link for Stillwater, again, because that's the default station on the home page. It gives the official National Weather Service forecast for Stillwater. And this is their chart format. So it shows you, a couple of days at a time. And in contrast to our format, on their format, you have to click to keep going through their forecast period. So here's their next 2 days, and then you hit forward 2 days to go to the end of their forecast period, and then you can go back again. So that's how that works. Again, you can select or deselect elements to display on their graphs, similar to what I just showed you. And it's pretty obvious, but here's the day, and then here's the time, and then here's a legend for what the colors mean on that particular graph. So temperature, wind chill, so forth. And they also show the predicted wind gusts, which is something which our NAM forecasts do not show. So if you want to actually see what type of gusts are being predicted into the future, that you can look at this upper line here, and they plot that anytime the gusts are over 20 miles an hour. So that's all I want to show you about that. The reason we actually give this link is that the particular forecast that we use is called the NAM forecast, North American Mesoscale Model. And it's pretty good most of the time, but sometimes there are discrepancies with what the official National Weather Service forecast is. So this gives you a quick link to look, at least for the primary station, what they are predicting, in this case for Stillwater, to see if there appear to be any major discrepancies. And similarly, we give you a link to the forecast table from the National Weather Service for Stillwater. Similar, you need to advance 2 days at a time through their forecast. You can select or deselect variables to display. The only thing different about their tables is that they use military time here. So 16 would be 4 p.m., 18 would be 6 p.m., and so forth. So if you like tabular format, this is the National Weather Service page forecast for that. Now, I want to talk about these two zoom maps, and the variables, relative greenness and fuel model, we're going to talk about in part 2 of the workshop. So unless you're a OKFire user to this point, it won't mean much to you, but I just want to show you how the maps themselves work. So when you first click on it, you get a statewide map of, in this case, relative greenness. If you're using a mouse and click on the map, it'll zoom you into kind of west central Oklahoma. And then you can use your scroll button. If you're doing this like on an iPad or whatever, you would use your fingers and so forth to expand it, but you can use your scroll button on your mouse to expand. And these are individual 500-meter square pixels of land that show the color legend for the variable that's being plotted. You can also move to other parts of the state by holding down your left mouse button, clicking on it, and dragging your mouse. So if you wanted to go to Osage County and then zoom in, you can do that. And then to get back to the entire statewide view, you just click on the map again, and then it'll get you back to the statewide map. So that's how that works for relative greenness. The same thing with the fuel model zoom map. You click on it. Sometimes you got to click a couple times with the mouse, but then you can again zoom into and drag it around to whatever part of the state you're interested in. And again, these are also 500-meter pixels of land. So that's how these two zoom maps work. Now let's go to fire advisories and outlooks. These are products by the National Weather Service to highlight, in this case, if there's any Oklahoma fire weather advisories, there's three types of advisories that are shown on this map, if there are any: a fire weather watch, a red flag warning, and a dense smoke advisory. Same thing for the national fire, if you want to see what's going on nationally. And then this is from the Storm Prediction Center. Nothing is showing now, but if there were any elevated critical to extreme fire weather areas in the country, they would be highlighted on this particular map. And actually, when I get to some of my presentations, I'll show you examples where they actually had something on these maps. So that's what that section is for. Now, we'll talk a lot more about this infrared satellite and satellite in general tomorrow, but this link here gives you a sort of regional map of Oklahoma and some of the other states. And if there were fires going on that were intense enough to be picked up by the satellite, they would be shown as black dots in various, wherever the fires are going on. So again, nothing showing right now. And we'll talk more about that. There's a lot more zoomed in maps available on the current maps page on OK Fire that we'll talk about tomorrow. Recent lightning activity. This is a free map source that shows lightning strikes going from the last 0 to 5 minutes up to the last 55 to 60 minutes ago. So right now you can see nothing is going on. Those of you who are in the OK First emergency management system, you have a lot more sophisticated lightning products, but they pay for them also. But these are free products that we can display on our site. Oklahoma burn bans. We'll talk again more about that tomorrow, but this is a page to see if there's any current burn bans going on, some of the frequently asked questions, the burn ban law, and then some of the other weather and drought maps that go into some of the decisions that county commissioners use to decide whether they can declare a burn ban or not in their county. The next couple are interesting additional resources. This has a wealth of information nationally for weather information. We give you also a couple other free sources of lightning detection if you want to go there. National Weather Service pages for fire weather in particular from these 4 specific regional offices, as well as a national fire weather page. If you want to go to their forecast pages, again, we link to a whole bunch of different things from those 4, Emerald, Norman, Tulsa, Shreveport. We also have other information such as 6 to 10 day outlooks for temperature and rainfall, 8 to 14 day, and 30 and 90 day, and so forth. If you're into forecast models and want to see some of the model output, you can explore some of these sections. Fire detection links nationally to see what fires may be going on, smoke dispersion forecasts nationally, air quality, and so forth. So this is a page that has a lot of information you can explore at your leisure. But this next one, contacts and learning tools, is very important. It has, if you want to get a hold of me, it has my contact information, email, and so forth, and tells you a little bit about me if you want to find out. And then John Weir, who's our OSU Extension Prescribed Burn Specialist. Many of you, I'm sure, know him. His information is here as well. The Mesonet Operations Center, if you see a problem with the OK Fire page, that some product appears not to be working or the data is out or something, you can either send them an email here or call this phone number and report it, and then that'll come to their attention and they can start working on what may be the problem. So that's where you can get in contact with Mesonet. And then these next sections are PDF documents of different aspects about the websites and products. And if you click on them, it'll bring up a PDF, which then you can download or print out. So it's a very educational section about different aspects of our models and also the website architecture and how to work with maps and charts. This next section is when we used to hold in-person workshops, we would give them folders with these 3 handouts in them. They're 2-pagers, and they're either basics for fire danger, prescribed burning, or operational procedures for assessing fire danger. So you can see here they're basically 2 pages. And so again, those are available in this section as well. We put the presentations that we'll be doing today and tomorrow in this section here. There's actually 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've also put 3 lab exercises that you can do at in your leisure time to familiarize yourself with the website and also the things that we've learned. And actually, it's a good learning tool for you to go through and familiarize yourself with the website and the product. So feel free to print those out and work on that at your leisure. The last section here is extension materials. This one's a nice video on drought and wildland fires. And then these four, I worked recently with John Weir in updating, well, these were earlier publications, but they were out of date. And so we updated them over the last couple of years. So that's what that is. So that's that section. And then if you click on news, that'll give you information on the latest. So in this case, we're advertising the workshops and the details and link to the registration page and so forth. But then other important items that have occurred in the past are available there as well. So that's what that section is for. And that pretty much winds up, we're going to talk about this section tomorrow, so I'm not going to go into that. So that takes us to pretty much everything on the website that's on the home page and some of the important other pages that these links point to. So at this point, I will open it up for Q&A. If anybody, Andrea, has a chat question, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question. I'll leave it up on the website so to make it
We have
easy.
no questions in the chat at the moment. Oh, wait, one just popped up. Do the stations have fuel moisture sensors 10-hour?
No, as we'll see tomorrow in part 2, these are calculated by a theoretical model that's actually been calibrated to Oklahoma conditions called the Nelson model. And so we use that to calculate our 1, 10, 100, and 1,000 hour fuel moisture. So the answer to that question is no, we don't use direct 10-hour sensors. And I know the Forest Service has used them in the past and may continue to do so.